the Cinema Judge!
Hello, and welcome to the Cinema Judge. To all my regulars out there, welcome back. Now, if you're new to the show, welcome aboard. Now, approach the bench today. We have the latest and rumored to be the final film Harrison Ford will make in the Indiana Jones series. Now, here's a tagline for Indiana Jones in the Dial of Destiny. Archaeologist Indiana Jones races against time to retrieve a legendary artifact that can change the course of history. And a fun little fact before I play the trailer, in real life, this device really exists. So that just makes it a little bit more fun to watch this film and just go, wow, hey, this thing actually is real. So here's the trailer for Indiana Jones in the Dial of Destiny.
I'm retiring.
Well, in that case, what are we drinking?
Same for the goddaughter.
Dad told me you found something on a train during the war. A dial that could change the course of history.
Why are you chasing the thing that drove your father crazy? Don't move.
We need to get out of here. Stop! Sorry.
Dr. Jones, get him. Hitler made mistakes, and with this, I will correct them all. You stole it. Then you stole it.
And then I stole it. It's called capitalism.
This way!
Fasten your seatbelts. There might be some turbulence.
You've taken your chances, made your mistakes. And now, a final triumph.
Give him hell, Indiana Jones! A few times in my life I've seen things. I've been tortured with voodoo. Been shot 9 times, including once by your father. Sorry! But I've been looking for this all my life.
Now, this is the first Indiana Jones film not directed by Steven Spielberg. But here's the deal. You could barely tell. James Mangold, what he did with this picture was nothing short of amazing. He has the DNA of Spielberg, but still has his little stamp, little DNA in there. And that's what a great director does. Because you don't want to just make a photocopy and not stretch or grow the series at all. Because these movies you have to grow, just like these movies represent different times of Indiana Jones' life. And he does such a wonderful job. There are so many little Easter eggs and just nuances that you're like, this could be a Steven Spielberg film. The shots, the angles, the editing. It is amazing to watch. The way I look at this film is like this. It's kind of like having a warm blanket, sitting down with an old friend and talking, because this movie, it moves forward, but yet it's so much nostalgia and memories involved. You might be asking, what else has he directed or been involved with? The guy is incredibly talented. I'll just run down just a short list here for you, because he's done so much. 2019, Ford versus Ferrari. 2017, Logan. 2013, The Wolverine. The 2010 film, Night and Day. 3:10 to Yuma. Walk the Line in 2005. Girl Interrupted, in Copland. And that's just to name a few guys. This guy is a credible talent. So getting him to do this movie is a giant get in my mind. But going back briefly, if you've never seen Copland, it stars Sylvester Stallone, Robert De Niro, just to name a few. It's pure magic. It is, you don't see a movie like that all the time, and it's just awesome. So that's Copland. If you've never seen it, see it. Now, coming up next, we're going to hear from a few people back to back, and I'm just going to let them speak, because that's what you're here for. First, we're going to hear from the director, James Mangold, and he was asked, what makes this series so endearing and lasting? And then we're going to go to Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford goes in a little bit more into his character and what this particular episode means to him and what he wanted to get across.
Indiana Jones movies, I think, remain popular because they represent to the audiences, first of all, they had a profound impact when they first came out, so they're a part of the childhood of so many people. But the films have been shared generationally. You know, parents have shared these movies with their kids and on and on. Why? Because they're charming, because they're filled with heart and character as well as action. They're imaginative. They build on the world we know and our history and take us to fantastic places, you know. But more than anything, they're also love letters to classic filmmaking. And I think that has a kind of universal appeal.
I think that's because the films themselves are such powerful entertainment. I've said in the past that I think Indiana Jones is more about movies than it is about archaeology. It's about the fun you can have at a movie. It's about the emotional exercise you can get at a movie. And though we've made 4 in the past, this one has an air of finality because it's my last Indiana Jones movie, and I wanted it to deal with the issue of age, of his advancing age, and what age has taken away from his capacity. His mental energy, his physical prowess, and put him in contest with somebody, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is out to swindle him. And so there's that the mental wrestling going on between these two characters as well.
And it really is fun to watch those two interact, Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Harrison Ford. I really enjoyed their on-screen chemistry. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge, not only is she a great actress, she's a tremendous writer. If you ever get a chance to delve into her career a little bit more, starting off with Fleabag, if you've never seen Fleabag, she's the maker of it, and she also starred in it. Incredible show. Dark, but funny, and it just works on so many levels. Now, just like a few minutes ago, you just heard why Harrison Ford and the director feel why Indiana Jones has such longevity. Up next, the rest of the cast members were asked the same thing, and this cast is incredible. Mads Mikkelsen, Shawnette Renee Wilson, and Boyd Holbrook. Those 3 are sitting next to each other, so they interview them all at once. In this set of interviews, they're sitting together and they're asking them, what makes you think this series is so long-lasting? And then they each talk about their characters, and then they talk about the first time they met Harrison Ford.
If we knew, we would be billionaires because we would copy that, right? It's got to be the combination of, obviously, Spielberg and Harrison. It's a combination is evergreen. Such a charming character. We identify with him. He's lying, he's stealing, he's funny, he's very human. And then it's just craftsmanship on a very, very high level.
I think it's also the adventure, the globe-trotting. You really get to see characters from all over the world represented here in unique and different ways. And I think, with one actor at the helm for 4 decades is pretty impressive.
I'm probably the easiest and the most vacant character to describe. Just basically Waller's lapdog. And if there was a moral compass, I think he's probably the opposite of that.
And the name of your character would
be?
Kleber.
Excuse me. I play Kleber. And I gave him a first name, even though they didn't give it to me. Eli Kleber.
Eli,
yeah. You like that?
Yeah. I think mine was Christine. Play Agent Mason. She is a representative of the United States government.
And I play Jürgen Voller, and he is a scientist during the Second World War in Germany, and that should ring a bell.
I saw it in Sicily, and they would do this thing where the stunt double Mike would, he basically looks just like Harrison almost with the hat and everything, and they would send him in like little golf carts to get the public to like chase that, and then Harrison would kind of go off to the side. And I met him leaning up against a wall in Sicily, and it's like, oh my God, it's the man in the flesh.
And I met him before we started shooting. I was supposed to meet Harrison, but then out of the trailer, Indiana Jones stepped out, hat, whip, everything. So I haven't met Harrison yet. I'm waiting for it.
I actually have not. I did not meet him in his full indie regalia. My first time was actually on screen.
Can you just imagine trying to maintain your composure? Here you are in a scene with Harrison Ford, and you got to keep cool. You got to stay in character. I don't think I could do it. I mean, no matter of fact, I know I couldn't do it. I'd just freak right out. It's just fun hearing about other actors talking about when they meet him and how he makes them feel and how he brings out the best in everybody else. Now, coming up next, we're going to hear from the director, and he's going to talk about the tone of this film and how it looks, how it flows, and how he didn't want to divert too much away from the past, from what we know and what we expect from these kind of films. He knew he had to stay true to that, but still move the character along, and he talks about where we meet the character now. And then after that, we're going to hear from Harrison Ford and Phoebe Waller-Bridge again, and they're talk about when they first met. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she's just a great interview, and she's just a great person, and she's honestly just thrilled, I think, to be part of this too, as anybody would be, really. But I love this conversation about when they first met and how she felt about it.
Well, in tone and style and where we're getting, we're trying to make a movie that certainly doesn't run away from what an Indiana Jones adventure should be. A kind of round-the-world adventure, a kind of screwball comedy, meaning gritty action, mystery, real, a nemesis for Indy who represents a threat to him or those he loves, and the mystery of the relic. These are all things that remain consistent across the movies, as well as, of course, Indy's character and many others who we will see again in this picture. But we're also dealing with something quite obvious the moment you see Harrison in the movie, which is just he's 42 years older than the guy who was in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So part of the movie is also addressed to what it is to be a hero in Sunset and what it is to face the final chapters of your life with all your triumphs and tragedies behind you, trying to understand what last adventure awaits you.
It was really fun.
Yeah, we met in Jim Mangold's office towards the end of the day, and
I was quite nervous.
And I was quite thrilled that finally working with an actress that's taller than I am.
This is a big thing for him.
Yeah, it was a big thing for me.
Actually, when I opened the door, he said, "My God, you're so tall."
Yeah.
And I think you cried, didn't you? You cried with relief.
I would have cried had I known what I was about to go through. I would have cried, but I didn't. I was thrilled because, I mean, I had seen Phoebe in Fleabag. I was aware of the range of her skill and talent, and I was thrilled that we had a story that attracted her interest, and that I would have her as the partner in this film.
And I had grown up with Harrison Ford. The movies that, Witness, The Fugitive, Blade Runner. I was walking behind that door were all of those movies when I was meeting Harrison. So it was a hugely exciting and quite intimidating moment. But like I say, the moment the door opened and I saw Harrison, he did just go, "Hey!" And from then on, I'd say we became firm friends. But I'll leave it open to Harrison to see what he says about that.
I feel so, and I hope so. Yes. It was a barrel of fun. There's something about, I mean, there are a lot of different elements to the relationship between us, and there are moments of seriousness, but there's also moments that the audience is meant to enjoy the banter between them, the contest between them. And I think it was well written, and I was delighted by having someone as adroit as she is with comedy and the mixture of comedy and real, true emotion to navigate this story with.
Helena is Indy's goddaughter. He last saw her when she was 12, and he was very good friends with her father, who died not long after he last saw her. And she comes catapulting back into his life at a sort of, not even a crossroads, just sort of a cul-de-sac in his life, and comes back with, she comes through the door with the joyful history of memories they had when she was young and he came to the house and visited her father, and she comes and tries to infect him with the idea of going on another adventure. But she is slightly more nefarious than she turns out, than she wants him to believe at the beginning, and she has her own agenda, and they end up going on an adventure, but not the one that she proffered to him in the beginning. She's a mercurial little rascal.
Now, speaking of rascal, we have a clip for you coming up next. In this clip, we have Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character and Harrison Ford's character in like his office area at the college, and he's walking back there to show her something. And while they're back there, these bad guys are at the college too, and they want to get to them. And then there's this confrontation that happens, and he's like, "Oh, what's going on?" So then Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character kind of bolts, and he's like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And these other people are like, "Listen, we don't want to do any harm. Just, cooperate with us." And of course, he's freaking out. He starts, running away and trying to get away, and he pushes these, not bookshelves, but they're file cabinets or file type things, and they go dum 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 dum, kind of like dominoes. It's kind of a little wink about other scenes that we've seen in other movies, but that's what makes this movie so cool. They have these little nods to previous scenes that we've seen in other kind of adventure movies. So in a nutshell, that's what the scene is. These people are chasing him. She gets away, and he's like, "What's going on?" And then after that, we have an interview with Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Harrison Ford, and they're asked, "What greatest challenge did you face making this film?" And I love her response. You're going to love it. When I first heard it, I'm like, yep, I could totally agree with that. And then after that, we're going to hear from the director, and he addresses why the movie takes place in 1969 or in that area. Because, well, if you track the movies, that's where they would be if he was at this particular age, etc., etc.
Stay where you are. Don't move. Who are these people?
We need to get out of here.
Are they with you?
Not an inch, Miss Shaw. Miss Shaw, stop! Stop! Sorry.
Helena!
Dr. Jones, it's over.
Who are you people? What do you want?
Stop!
Helena Shaw! She's on the roof. Find another way up.
Dr. Jones! Dr. Jones, we're not gonna hurt you.
Well, not smiling all the time. Well, that was a note. Seriously, it was a note that Jim had to give me all the time. Just stop smiling. You're meant to be frightened. But I was like, I know, but he's wearing the hat. So that was a challenge. But also, it's a very physical experience and a very physical job. And even though it was challenging, it was such a joy to be able to, throw yourself at that and be able to keep your character intact while you're being sort of flung around a set. That was a challenge. But what's your answer to that question?
What's my answer to that question?
What's your answer to that question?
Well, I'm surrounded by
Idiots.
a fantastic group of actors. Mads Mikkelsen, Phoebe, all of the characters. Ethan. I mean, they're all so vivid and exciting. My greatest challenge was to keep up with them. Actually, to keep up with all of them, or try to keep up with all of them, and to maintain, the standards that they were setting.
Well, because mathematically that would put it would match the age we were playing Harrison and take us, given you had a timeline of movies and what age he was in the previous pictures. So you're tracking your movie star's age and your character's age. One way or another was going to put us in the late 60s or maybe early 70s. So I chose 1969 simply because our villain, who's modeled after Werner von Braun, who was a famous Nazi rocket scientist who came to this country and helped us with our Apollo program and our rocket program at NASA, is a character that I thought was very interesting to show, even from a historical basis, how some pretty brilliant Nazi minds had managed to make a home in America and a life for themselves and embed themselves in the system that reveals itself in our movie.
Now, that was the director talking about the time frame that this movie takes place in. But up next, we're going to hear from those three actors that we talked to earlier. Mads Mikkelsen, Shawnette Renee Wilson, and Boyd Holbrook. These next set of interviews covers a lot of area here, so I'm just going to let them roll. It starts off basically them talking about the director. Then he talk about Harrison, and then saying goodbye to the character, and he talk a little bit about their characters also. So here it is.
We're first timers. You've been there before.
He treats everyone definitely equal. No one is spared. Even Harrison to Eton. Jim has a very creative way of giving you an intimate direction about 100 feet away, and it's always pretty enjoyable to hear who's getting that direction.
Yeah, he's definitely passionate about the craft, passionate about what's happening on screen, and even around it. Very attentive to detail, but also works in the minutia of our interpersonal relationships, the intimacy of these scenes, and really his rhetoric is very visceral to getting actors to the place that he needs them to be.
I agree. I mean, it's a big film to carry. So it takes a lot of energy, and he does have that from from early morning to late evening. It's just a big ball of energy that I love working in that manner because he's very direct with the way he's guiding us.
Yeah, I feel like nothing has been repeated in this film. I feel like we're all probably bringing something different, and I don't feel like this is I feel like all the films that I'd done before gave me the tools or the arsenal to be able to go on this marathon. So it's almost like everything else was a great dress rehearsal for this character.
I've never been closely aligned with Nazis before.
Yep.
That's different. I think something that would be similar would be, I guess, just looking really good.
Yeah, I've played characters who had ambitions on the world's behalf before, but never as a Nazi. So that will be the difference, I guess.
Well, yeah, I would say it's hard to align yourself with the ideology of that party. So That's a big thing to do, and it's a really big trick to play in the audience. And it can be quite simple of interchanging that with something else that you do genuinely care about. So for me, that was something hard to wrap my head around.
To get the tone of an Indiana Jones film is obviously the target here, and it's tricky because everybody knows what it is when they see it, but it's hard to put a finger on it. So I think we were just constantly trying to be aware whether we were inside the parameters of an Indiana Jones film. I did spend some time thinking about that. Yeah.
Well, for me, I guess it's also just relinquishing the idea that you're in an Indiana Jones film and the gravity of that, the fact that it's going to be, the finale of this franchise, and not getting too overwhelmed by that fact, and
Just
going to work and doing your job and staying grounded.
Like always,
It's PG.
getting new friends. This is a funny job because you have a very intense meeting with people for a while here, and then it's over. And this was no exception. We just met a fantastic bunch of new friends, and obviously. Seeing Harrison saying goodbye to it, the last scene he did was a very big moment.
Yeah, I would definitely say the camaraderie with the castmates, with the cast and with the crew and creatives. Everyone, I think, had such a wonderful air of generosity and community, and that felt really special. And I loved working in London so much.
Yeah, being cooped up in a little tin can for months on end, you get to know people pretty well, and I think those are just some memories that you get to keep for the rest of your life. Because it's a real movie. It is a real movie, which you need to see with other people on a big screen with sound, the old classic experience, because this is an old classic film.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the best ways to really take in all the sacrifice and the work people have put into it. There wasn't a lot of green screen involved in the making of this, and so you're seeing real craft, and that is something that you should have to experience on a more magnified stage.
I agree. It's a roller coaster, and you gotta see that on a big screen, not on a small one.
I really kind of agree with him on this bad boy. To see this on the big screen is almost a rite of passage, because a lot of us out there have grown up with Indiana Jones, seen them all. It's almost you have to see it on the big screen if you can, or if that makes you feel comfortable. You can watch it when it comes. I mean, we're all gonna buy it when it comes out, obviously, but seeing it on the big screen, classic Hollywood, the movie just feels, again, just right. It just feels. This has been part of our lives for so long. They feel a way. They look a certain way. They make you feel a certain way. And it's shot practically. There's not like a lot of CGI or anything like that. It's just practical sets, wild adventure. And the feeling you get when you see that on the big screen is really second to none. Now, up next, we're going to hear from Harrison Ford, and he talks a little bit about saying goodbye to this character. It's bittersweet, but he feels in his heart that it's time just to say, this is the end. This is how the story ends. And it must be kind of hard for an actor to come to that realization. Yes, he's been doing this role now for over 40 years, but still, there's some part of you that I'm sure it's part of you, and it's like, oh man, this is my last one. And again, it must be a very difficult decision to make. But I understand it completely. I mean, the guy, he's done a lot of stuff. He probably like, okay, let's just end this on a high note. And then after that interview, we have a clip for you. And in this clip, it's classic Indiana Jones type scene. Here they are, him and Phoebe Waller-Bridge. They're underground in this cavern, and they find out there's a lot of methane gas around. And you can hear her coughing in the background. And they see all these other skeletons. These people got trapped at one point and they couldn't get out. But Indy has this little tablet in his hand. It's not a tablet, but a little thing that he deciphers and talks about displacing water. And they're standing in this little water in this area. And he tells her to start get down there in the pool and start dropping in these rocks. Like, they're not rocks, but there's these kind of rock type things. And they start putting them in this little pool type thing. It counterweights something, then the water starts disappearing, then the bottom drops out, and they slide down kind of like a slide. Anyway, in a nutshell, that's that scene.
Well, it's both sad and happy. I mean, I'm gratified that I had this wonderful opportunity to work with this character and these kinds of films with some regularity over the last 40 years. But I'm ready I'm ready to conclude the story of the character. I think it's appropriate that we do have a story about Indiana Jones, which confronts his age, which confronts his mental state when we first meet him, and allows us to see him just picked up and brushed off and back in action one more time. And I'm really gratified that we found, a script, a story, and then when Stephen brought Jim in, I thought that was fantastic, and I'm delighted with the film altogether. It was a great experience.
Under the moon, life lies at her feet. Water displacement. Get in the pool!
What? How'd they open the door?
Well, they didn't get out the doors. Get in the pool!
Okay, I'm getting in the pool.
Help me! Archimedes was fascinated by water displacement!
Like I said, classic indie. Action, adventure, everything you need in these kind of films. And the cherry on top is John Williams is still doing the music. It's just so cool. He has a sound. He has so much feeling in his music, and you hear it and you're like, yep, John Williams. And it's just he's just a master of music. And you just hear it, it just seeps into your soul. And you're like, oh man, he knows how to play with our emotions. But when you hear that theme kick in, you're like, oh yeah, I know what I'm here to see. Now, coming up next, we're going to have a lot of interviews, well, not a lot of interviews, but we're going to have some interviews from the world premiere and also some interviews from the Cannes Film Festival. So first, we're going to hear from Harrison Ford. And he just talks about how grateful he is to people like us who kept this going for 40 years. Because we wouldn't go, though, if they weren't good. So it's like, you give us the product, we're going to go see it. That's how simple it is. And this character is so priceless. Whatever he did, he nailed that character of Indiana Jones. Vulnerable, action, tough, but funny, but yet subdued. He had so many characteristics in this role that we could all relate to at some point of our lives. And after we hear from him, we're going to hear from the director. And he's just going to talk a little bit about all of it involved. And again, I'm not going to interrupt these guys. I'm going to let these interviews go. And then we're going to hear from Phoebe Waller-Bridge. And then we go back to Harrison Ford. But before that all starts, I want to tell you a mini story about my editing process here. Because when you hear the last interview with Harrison Ford, he talks about just how lucky he is. But when I was making this episode, I'm moving stuff all over the timeline, dropping stuff here and there. And I happened to drop that interview in front of the original trailer that came out, like maybe last year or whatever. And it was just a different feel to that trailer. But there's something something awesome about it. And when you put that right next to when he talks about how lucky he is, it just, when I was making it, I'm like, oh man, it just hit home for me. It was like, it gave me an emotional feeling for whatever reason. But it was just like kind of like a conclusion, if you will. Just gives you a little summary. So, in a nutshell, that's what I'm trying to say. When you hear that final interview with Harrison Ford talking about how lucky he is, I'm going to play that original trailer because it flows in my mind as a perfect segue into his, goodbye, if you will. Does that make sense? Anyway, you'll see what I'm saying. Check it out.
Well, I'm celebrating this film and this installment, but I'm also celebrating all of those people who have kept us making these movies for 42 years and whom I owe everything. And I really hope that they like our movie. That's very important to me. That I think the kind of film that is passed on from generation to generation is the kind of film that I grew up and treasured. That family aspect of these films, I think, is one of the most important things to me. Because we've gone from generation to generation through the agency of family. I mean, you can't ask for anything more.
What a joy. I mean, honestly, how unreal to find myself here. We've been trekking through the streets of Morocco. We've been on the beaches of Sicily. We've been in Scotland and in London and on giant sound stages. And now we're here with a finished film to share it with indie fans around the world. Indy is not a Superman. He's not a superhero. He's from the moment we meet him in Raiders of the Lost Ark, we see someone who's trouble with relationships, who gets kind of a little freaked out in crowds, who isn't connected to his students, who really is much more comfortable lost in a book or in a cave. So Harrison digs into all that and loves it because I think it makes him so much richer as a character and funnier. I just think it's such a joy to see Harrison back in action, to feel the beauty and the power of John Williams' powerful music, written in pencil on a piano by one of our most preeminent composers at 90 years of age. That to me, it's Indiana Jones films, before they're anything, are a love letter to movies, golden age classic movies.
Oh my God, we've been sitting on this film for so long. I'm so excited for it to come out. And it's such a ride and it's such an adventure, and I'm just so happy to be in with an audience experiencing it. It's very hard to describe because it feels incredibly surreal, but also like the gravitas of it is, I'm reminded of that every day with every poster I see and every fan that I meet of the movies. And you just hope we haven't, messed it up. I don't think we have. I think Jim has done an amazing, beautiful job. And there are so many beautiful Easter eggs in there from the original films, and so many tips of the hat all the way through. And I think it really is just a really special movie. Well, this is where it belongs, This is how we're supposed to see it. And some movies are shot to be seen this big. And even when we were shooting, when you see these crash zoom close-ups of Harrison and he's like, this way, you're just like, yeah, you want it to be huge. So I can't wait to see it. I mean, the whole crew just melted when he came out in the outfit for the first time. I think we'd been filming for about a month and we were in Sicily, and maybe even more than a month, but he walked out onto set very casually and we were all just like, and then the only note I got for the rest of the day was to stop smiling behind him, because I was just like, even though we were meant to be going into a terrifying cave, I was like, It was just, the action elements were just so exciting, and we traveled to these wonderful places. Every day was a crazy new set or an amazing build or a tomb. So I felt emotional sort of 2 or 3 times a day just looking at the artistry of what everyone's done. The scale of this movie is unbelievable, and it really is as much fun to make it as it is to watch it. Surprises, adventure, wild ideas, executed brilliantly, and Harrison Ford at his absolute best.
We go to work every day. We make a little piece of film. It takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of collaboration. So it takes a lot of agreement. And so every day is a process. We don't want to tell them what to expect. We want them just to experience the film and take away whatever they treasured from it.
I wanted to do it like an 80-year-old man. I didn't want to do it like a 30-year-old man. I wanted the audience to accept the fact that Indiana Jones had grown older and that he was no longer who he used to be, but he's somebody that is still going on adventures that are worthy of our interest. I was very gratified. You make a film, you don't make a film for yourself. You make it for an audience. And this is the first time I've seen it with a proper audience, and a very distinguished, and an audience of many of the people who work in our industry. And I was very gratified by it. I think James Mangold made a terrific movie. I think the performances from Phoebe and from Mads Mikkelsen and from all the other cast were brilliant. And I was just very moved by it. And it was a very nice nod to my career. And it made me realize how lucky I am.
I miss the desert. I miss the sea. And I miss waking up every morning, wondering what wonderful adventure the new day will bring to us.
Those days have come and gone.
Perhaps not.
I don't believe in magic. But a few times in my life, I've seen things I can't explain. And I've come to believe it's not so much what you believe. It's how hard you believe it.
Who is this man?
I'm her godfather.
Related.
Get back!
See what I'm saying? For whatever reason, that just brought everything full circle. You just feel the magic of this entire series. But he was wrong. He might think he's lucky. We're the lucky people. Look at what he's given us all these years. Both him, Spielberg, and that whole creative team. Just movie magic. And you can't put a price on that. So I tip my cap to everybody involved in that project, because this is part of history, really, or at least movie history. Because, man, these things don't come around all that often, especially series don't last this long and still maintain that quality and authenticity. It's just, seeing the theater was really wonderful, and I'm very glad I had a chance to do that, because it gives you a good closure to the whole process. Now, if you guys want to watch this TV version or any other podcast that I do, you can do that. It's streaming on demand, because this is what I like to do. Because on the TV version of this, you don't see or hear me at all. All it is pure interviews, scenes, on-the-set footage, everything like that. So if you want to do that and watch the show on demand, go to either Bloomington, Minnesota's public access TV channel, or go to bit.ly/cinemajudge. bit.ly/cinemajudge. This TV show and several others will be there on demand whenever you want to check it out. Well, I truly hope you enjoyed our in-depth look at Indiana Jones in the Dial of Destiny. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, any way to improve the show, feel free to let me know. cinemajudge@hotmail.com, or Instagram, The Cinema Judge. Also on YouTube. I do stuff on TikTok. almost on most platforms. I would love your feedback, because this is what I always say. I can't grow if I don't know. So please, let me know what I should do better or different or what have you. Or also, if you're ever out in the meta universe, I'm usually perusing out there, usually late at night, and I love talking movies with people. So if you ever want to, just look up Cinema Judge in Horizon Worlds, and I love to chat movies with you, because hey, why not? But now, it's one of my favorite parts of this show. This is where I thank you, the listeners, for listening to my last show. So for all of you out there, I hope my voice finds you well. To all of you who either listen to this when you're going to work, while you're at work, on break, sitting at home, doing the laundry, dishes, I love hearing how people listen to this show. And you might be listening to the show 2 years from now, for all I know. It doesn't matter. This is the place where I feel we can just talk about movies. We don't sit here and yell and scream or cry about Hollywood. That's not our jam. The world is a noisy enough place. This is like a little bubble, a sanctuary, where we can just come and learn about one movie and get the information from everybody involved. You don't need me telling you to see a movie or not to see a movie, because we all walk different paths. And any movie is somebody's favorite movie. There's no way I would tell you not to see something. That's what the show's about. The evidence is presented to you, and you make up your own mind. It's all up to you, because we all want to spend our hard-earned money wisely. Because we all want the same thing, an enjoyable movie experience. So wherever, whenever, or whatever you're doing, this is for you. To all my listeners, I tell you what, for the United States, and again, with Germany, thanks so much, Germany. Same thing with Japan. You guys going out of your way to listen to it. Maybe you're sharing the show with other people, your friends. If you are, I truly appreciate that. From St. Paul, Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Overland Park, Kansas, Bloomington, Minnesota, Chicago, Illinois, Richfield, Minnesota, Tokyo, Weinham, Baden, Wurmberg. Oh, I know I butchered that horribly, but truly, thank you. Frankfurt AM, Maine, Hesse, always a constant. Thank you so much. Stillwater, Minnesota, Valencia, California, always. Thank you so much. Savage, Minnesota, Parker, Colorado, Des Moines, Iowa, Littleton, Colorado, Maple Grove, Minnesota, Washington, District of Columbia, and that's just to name a few. But honestly, whenever I see somebody, hey, I gotta listen, I truly do a happy dance. Believe it or not, I do. Because you took time out of your life to listen to this show, and maybe you learned something. And that's what this is all about. I just want to share movies with you, and just maybe you'll find a gem. You're like, hey, I want to see this movie. Not every movie that we do is a blockbuster. And that's what it's all about. It's just finding those movies that you want to learn more about. Now, this week's bourbon shout-out goes out to the incredible staff, the doctors and nurses at TRIA, because I had to go back, and they were able to give me a nice shot in my left buttocks, because I was having some, arthritis and bursitis kind of jazz going on. These guys, bam, poof, did that, and you guys, constant professionals, seeing people every day like that, and I couldn't do it. It was way above my head. But seriously, to every one of you who are just so patient and you're kind and no fuss, constant professionals, you guys are awesome. To the entire staff over at TRIA, thank you and cheers. But now it's time for the music section. Now, as you all know, this movie takes place in 1969. So what I figured, I might as well throw down some music from 1969 era. So I threw down Woodstock. I listened to that whole soundtrack. Of course, epic, classic. But the funny thing is, in the trailer at the beginning of this episode, they have the Rolling Stones, Sympathy for the Devil playing. But in that exact scene in the movie where they're showing that in the trailer, there's a Beatles song. So it just kind of made me chuckle that when you're watching the movie, like, hey, wait a minute. In the trailer, the Stones were in this part, but in the actual movie, it was the Beatles. So it kind of got me in that headspace. So I went down in that era. And you can't go wrong. So all that stuff from 1969, 70, all that, area, maybe even 68 a little bit I threw in there. But yeah, did the Woodstock thing. But then I just kept moving on. Then my mind kept wandering. And I was just kind of like, I was in a little bit of a headspace over the week. I was kind of irritated about something. So I needed a little bit of a chill action. So what I do in case of emergencies, break that glass, I played the Carpenters' 35th Anniversary Gold album. That's right, the Carpenters. Epic songs, classic, and just calming as all get out. So I needed to be calmed and mellowed a little bit when I was editing this because I had some rage going on in my head. So that's what I threw down first. And I go, well, okay, I'm getting better. I'm getting better here. Then I threw down the Beach Boys' greatest hits. I mean, come on. The Beach Boys. If they can't put you in a good mood, you're doomed. So I threw down some of them also. So that's what I was listening to when I was editing the TV version, which becomes this. Because here, obviously, I can't listen to tunes because, well, that would be rude. But that's what I was listening to when I was making this. Well, that is it. My glass awaits. I'm thirsty. So cheers to you and to the movies. So until next time, be well, be good, and I'm gone. I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening to The Cinema Judge.